And welcome back. Omena's mission is to prevent intergenerational trauma caused by emotional abuse by equipping children and young adults with essential social emotional skills. Now, their work has already impacted thousands of students and educators, providing them with the tools to recognize and combat emotional abuse effectively. Joining me to share their point of view on the matter, I'm joined by the founder and executive director of Omena, Francesca, I want to say it right, Raoelison. How am I saying it right? Raoelison?
You got it. It's Francesca Raoelison.
See,
Thank you
I'm
so much.
sorry. You know, it's been a bad day in terms of name pronunciation. This is the second time I've done it, but forgive me. Glad to have you, Francesca, with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, and I was very looking forward to being on this call today.
No, really, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us because as we talk about emotional abuse, honestly, there's so many people who deal with emotional abuse. Physical abuse, we hear highlighted a lot, but when it comes to emotional abuse, sometimes that takes a backseat to physical abuse. But talk to us about emotional abuse and the impact that it's having in society today.
Yeah, so like you said, we talk so much about physical and sexual abuse, but not too much about emotional abuse. Emotional abuse, which I'm going to explain a little bit, which is a form of psychological abuse. And it is, like you said, very prevalent, not only in my home country, Madagascar, but all around the world. And actually, there is 1 billion children who are experiencing emotional abuse growing up, according to the World Health organization. And it is characterized by belittlement that can be by insults, repeated insults, belittlement, negative criticism, invalidation of emotions, control, and manipulation. And I can go deeper into those different definitions. But again, this is, I would say, an issue that we've all experienced in a way or another, directly or indirectly, but it is hard to grasp the concept, and as a result, because we're not able to put a name on it, we're allowing it to continue, and it is affecting us on, I would say, on an emotional level. Mental health issues as well are involved, and it really has a tremendous impact on our sense of identity and dignity.
When you talk about the sense of identity, let's talk about young people for a moment, because when children, that's what's happening during their childhood, their adolescence. They're really forming a sense of identity, but sometimes this sense of identity becomes marred, and it becomes marred simply because of emotional abuse. And we're knowing that the numbers continue to rise. Can you take me through a little bit about how prevalent it is in the lives of children today and what our children are actually facing?
Oh, yes. So emotional abuse is a cycle. It starts in the household. Usually, we experience it in the household. That can be through domestic violence, parents hearing parents fight, or just at home, and then the parents talking to their children as well, insulting maybe, or belittling again, or invalidating their emotions. So that place is where children first understand how to, first of all, acknowledge their emotions and navigate them. So if in the household they're not able to have a model who can, parents who are able to help them navigate that, their first understanding of their emotions would be, when I express that and it's not invalidated, then I'm not going to share my emotions anymore. So first, we experience it in the household. It has a spillover in all of the relationships in our lives. That can be at school afterward. That can be through bullying. After that, we can experience it in the workplace. Let's say the parents fighting at home and not able to, I would say, recognize what's going on, their emotions, and they're gonna maybe lash out on their employees, or invalidate what the employee is going through, or their colleagues. So there's a spillover effect there, and that can affect the community overall. But it does start in the household first.
Yeah. In case you're just joining us, we've got Francesca Raoelison who's on with us, and she's sharing a little bit about the emotional abuse that so many people are actually out there facing. And she is the founding and executive director of Omena. let's talk about Omena for a minute, because Omena's, mission is really to deal with the issue of emotional abuse. How's your organization taking this on?
Yes. So where do I start? Emotional abuse, again, for me personally, was something that I've never recognized as emotional abuse. I could see all of the different signs, but I never could put a name on it because it was so ingrained in the culture where I grew up. So I'm from Madagascar, that's where I grew up. But then my studies in psychology allowed me to dive deeper into the concept of emotional abuse, also known as psychological abuse, and the impact on people's, again, sense of identity and mental health. And the mission of Omena is, first of all, to help people recognize what emotional abuse is by putting a name on it, by helping people see the signs, the different signs. What does emotional abuse look like? Through the belittlement, control, manipulation. And then once you have a clear sign of what and recognize what emotional abuse is, now you can address it. And we address it by providing children and young adults with the language of emotion. We call it social emotional learning, but it's basically teaching young children about their emotions, understanding what's going on, naming their emotions, understanding the needs behind each of the emotions, and then expressing that in healthier ways. We also teach them to build empathy and to set boundaries and to overall build a generation that is now more empathetic.
And that generation that we're talking about is a generation that really needs all the help that they can get. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things out there in these societal factors. When you've got social media, you've got all external influences out there that are really impacting people that can take them down this emotional rabbit hole. But at the core of it, Francesca, we talk about emotional abuse. It's tied to the lack of a healthy relationship. I mean, many times when you don't have healthy relationships, this is a byproduct of not having healthy relationships. So can you give me a little bit about your organization? How do you tackle the issue of healthy relationships, building healthy relationships, so that way we don't end up in a place of emotional abuse?
Exactly. In places where you see the unhealthy behaviors as a norm, let's say jealousy or control or just um, belittlement or name calling, if that is the norm that you see when you grow up, that's what you are more likely to perpetuate. And again, emotional abuse can be very subtle. It can be by, again, invalidating people's emotions. And that can be, let's say, I'm going through something specific. And for me, it matters to me and it hurts me at a certain level that compared to someone else, it might not be the same. But through what we share, through what we do at Omena, it's the understanding that everyone's emotions are valid and that we we can feel whatever we feel, and that's okay. And there is a message behind that, and understanding that we are human beings and that we can experience different things at different levels is at the core, and also understanding that we're all different. So one of the things through the research that I found was that systems of oppressions in the case of Madagascar or in different places, racism, patriarchy, sexism, they have perpetuated the cycle of it is an yes, it is exacerbating emotional abuse and making it that it is perpetuated. Also, dominant narrative. When we talk about dominant narrative, meaning that if there is a place where a narrative um, if there is something that is said to be normal in terms of the culture, a dominant culture, um, um, can I say this again? I'm
Well,
like lost a little bit
no,
in my
it's okay.
thoughts.
I can jump in. We're even now. I made the mistake earlier. You got lost, right? We're good. Let me ask you this: when we talk about support, right?
Mm-hmm.
This requires a lot of support because there's so many people who are masking it, so many people that are dealing with it. So let's get into the area of support and support that your organization provides, given the fact that there so many people who are diagnosed with emotional abuse, and then you have another population of people who really have not been diagnosed but walk with this every day. So talk to us about the support that's provided through your organization for persons who experience this.
Yeah, so there's a lot of organizations that we are working with. We are partnering with organized domestic violence. We are partnering with domestic violence organizations, and they are focusing on post-abuse. So they are helping providing shelters or legal help to the victims of emotional abuse. For Omena, we are more proactive, so we are more on the preventative side of things. So what we are providing is a training that gives people the understanding of, first of all, what emotional abuse looks like. That can be understanding the signs, understanding the causes, which are, like I said earlier, because of systems of oppressions and dominant narratives that makes it that emotional abuse is perpetuated in different places. And we also provide them with what we call social emotional learning, which is the language of emotions. And when it starts with really understanding ourselves. When people are told repeatedly that they are not enough, that what they do, that they're stupid, or that what they do
Doesn't
or
matter?
criticize, yes, doesn't matter, or criticizing, doing, having doing hostile sarcasm regarding their body, for example, or that would undermine their dignity, that would lead to, in the long term, having impact on their mentality, their mental health, basically. So that form of emotional abuse, first of all, if we cannot put a name on it, we are not going to be able to even recognize the consequences of that. So the work that we do is to shed light on what emotional abuse is, so that we have people have more agency to address it, and they do that with the social emotional learning tools that we provide them. So those tools are ranging from understanding their emotions. We have a wheel of emotions with all of the different emotions that are existing, and we have also a guide in terms of what are the needs behind each of the emotions, and then they get to express their emotions with what we call I statement, for example, meaning that I'm going to share what I'm feeling right now versus blaming you and saying you're selfish by doing this. Instead, I would say I feel hurt when this was said, and in that sense, we are building a conversation and healthier conversation and how do you say that, interactions based on empathy and understanding. So that's at the core of what we do. And the educators, they do practice that throughout the year, and then they share that knowledge around them as well.
It's pretty common practice that most organizations and most corporations have to really deal with the area of sexual harassment. You have sexual harassment training. Some stuff is mandated by the state. But when we talk about the issue of emotional abuse, that's not always so mandated. But if a corporation, a business, an entity decides, I want to be able to provide some sort of training and or an awareness moment. How do they go about doing that and developing that within their own context?
Mm-hmm. So the work that we do is focused on emotional abuse prevention, and research shows actually that because before escalating into physical, violent, and sexual abuse, abuse starts with verbal, emotional, and psychological abuse. So our approach is to again share what emotional abuse is, in a sense where most of the time physical abuse also happens because instead of expressing what's going on inside, because you don't have the tools to navigate the emotions and express that, because that's a reality. We don't teach about emotions at school. So once that happens and that you are frustrated, that's where physical abuse comes in. So that's why the work that we do is so important, because we start by potentially preventing emotional abuse by preventing emotional abuse to happen, we are potentially preventing it to escalate into violent, sexual, physical abuse.
I only have a couple of minutes left, and literally they told me about a minute and a half, but I want to get your perspective on this here. You know, so far you've trained about 250 educators in 15 schools, empowering more than 5,000 students, and you've had about 50 in-practice sessions. Talk to me about the results and what you're finding.
Mhm. Yes, we are training those educators. We are choosing young adults because they are the future parents and we want to break the cycle with them. What we have seen is that actually there is one of our educators who just got awarded what we call the Fulbright Fellowship, and it is a fellowship that is allowing it is a scholarship that is allowing students to go abroad, and it's funded by the U.S. government. And then once they finish their studies, they get to come back to their countries and share what they've learned. So the theory of change behind the work that we do is that by breaking the cycle of emotional abuse, by breaking the mental barrier that people are going through, they get to reach their full potential. And when they get to reach their full potential, they can start achieving more. And that is one of the ways that we have seen our educators not only start the change with themselves, but also making a change in their own relationships, in their community, and in the country right now. One of the examples that we have had with the same person I'm talking about is that they joined our organization 4 years ago when we started the initiative, and they grew as we grew, and they learned about all of the tools. And the next year after they joined, their wife also joined. They wanted their wife to join, and then after that, they got a child, and they are now starting to implement all of the tools. And they shared in one of their videos how they have been able to break the cycle and have a more healthier relationship between his wife and him, but also with the child right now, and how he's able to reach his full potential, knowing that is not the problem anymore. Because yes, at the end of the day, emotional abuse makes you feel like you are the problem.
Yeah. Great work, Francesca. Got to leave it there, but thank you for taking the time to share with us. It is really a much needed topic that we have to have some more discussion on. Francesca Raoelison, who is now the founder and then also the executive director of Omena. Thank you for taking the time of being with us. I'm glad I can get the name right on the going out, and certainly we look forward to seeing you real soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty,
Have
we're
a good
taking a
day.
quick break. We'll be back with more coming up right after this.